Welcome to the Bald Move Pulp podcast, the officially unofficial podcast for Loki, I guess. I don't know. We're talking about Loki, season 1, episode 4, titled The Nexus Event. Aaron, what do you think of this episode?
I thought it was pretty good. I think that I like how they're humanizing both Lokis, and actually everyone at the TVA, with the possible exception of Ravonna.
I think it's Ravonna.
Ravonna. And this also, for kind of a bummer episode, was also really funny. I thought the verbal wordplay was really good, almost to the extent that like they were competing at cross purposes, because I think you're supposed to understand that Owen Wilson's going through an existential crisis and just a lot of like mixed feelings about Loki, and he's being so funny in his quips and shit that like it kind of steals energy. But also, I'm not sure exactly how serious we're supposed to take this show. It's about entire civilizations being wiped out and just using that as like a backdrop to, it's like essentially like a primo camping spot is the end of an entire civilization, you know? It's just so kind of like baseline black comedy that like if they ever go for like a genuine emotional beat, I wonder if it'll land. Even like, you know, like Loki's doing some personal development, but it's all through the lens of getting kicked in the crotch through a possible eternity,
Being tortured. Yeah.
Yeah. But it tortured in almost a slapstick kind of way. I liked it, like, because I'm not getting too, you know, caught up in the, I guess, the drama of Loki, and I'm in it for the comedy and for the plotting, which is going to be interesting if we take Michael Waldron at his word and he's going to like blend a whole bunch of like really melancholy leftover stuff in this season. But no, I really liked it, and I appreciated the twist. Also, everybody, if you have not seen the after credit scene, please, I beg you, before you send feedback, please just stop right now before you're spoiled. It's like a 30-second scene. Just fast forward through not all the credits, because, you know, you got the stylish credits, which are the actual credits, and then you have like the 10 minutes of boring black and white, just font shit, all the different, you know, international versions and whatnot. Watch that, and then you can start the episode, because I could already tell that a lot of people haven't seen it, based on some comments I saw on Twitter and whatnot. What'd you think?
Yeah, I like this episode. For a lot of the same reasons you did. I think the writing, the dialogue especially, is very crisp, very smart, and playful. I like that about these. Really, all of Marvel stuff is like that, with the exception of maybe Ragnarok, which I hate. But that's amazing. The thing that kept coming back to me this episode is what we said about last episode, which was, boy, there's something else going on behind the scenes here, right? This can't just be this straightforward thing that we're seeing, because, boy, that didn't really feel like it paid off, or it was going anywhere. And then, like, we expected the subterfuge, we expected the trick, and then so far, no trick. So I'm like sort of retroactively more disappointed in last episode, because I was kind of holding out hope for this one to recontextualize everything. But that didn't happen, and I maybe it's me that needs to recontextualize my feelings on Loki, because if I keep holding out hope for that big twist, that big thing that's going to blow my mind, and this week wasn't it, right? I mean, like it might have been for some people, but I think we saw this coming episode 1 or something with the TVA stuff, with the Timekeeper reveal. Yeah. So like that wasn't the thing that was going to blow my mind, and I don't know if it has anything up its sleeve that is going to blow my mind in that timey-wimey kind of way, but we'll see. I'm going to temper my hope for like how twisty this show is going to be.
Yeah, but we were talking a little bit about this pre-podcast about how, you know, if you again take Waldron at his word that this is a heavily leftovers inspired show, a lot of leftover seasons had like a lot of those big, like, you know, I mean, we learned to trust it. But in first season, I remember, you know, I've been rewatching and listening to some of our podcasts. Like we were like really angsty in the middle goings of that about like, this is going to be another fucking Lindelof bullshit. Stuff, like, it's like, there's just no way this stuff can possibly be meaningful. But they played the trick that like, yeah, there was all this like theory crafting and red herrings and biblical allusions and stuff on. But like what really mattered was the character connections. And I think that I can start to see I mean, I don't think Sylvie and Loki are like, Thoreau and shit. What's the Nora
Kuhn? Carrie Coon.
Carrie Coon. Thank you. I don't think this is a return of Thoreau and Coon, but like they're doing something interesting with them. Like being like these two lonely characters who have had shitty childhoods and can kind of understand each other like uniquely. I mean, it is like as there is an element of it being cosmically fucked up and wrong and weird, as Owen Wilson went on at length about.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I could see caring about these enough that like if they make some like genuine self-sacrifice or find some kind of, I don't know, some character development piece at the end of this, that it would be. But that's the thing. It's like there's no fun, even with Max Richter and a full orchestra behind it. I don't think there's any way that Loki could hit like a penultimate episode of Leftovers note. But if it can get to, a decent cover band version of that, it would be pretty impressive. And I think that's where the ceiling is of this show. And that's a pretty fucking, that's a vaulted fucking ceiling with premium exposed timber rafters for a Marvel Cinematic Universe show to do something like that. I mean, I think they've hit notes like that before in some of their side projects, and if like they hit all kinds of notes in game, but then they had 10 plus years of us caring about these characters behind it. So I'm still like, I think they keep doubling down, and this after credit scene is a perfect example of that. Yeah. Where it's like I don't know how you were, but like, okay, again, I warned you fuckers. So if you're still listening now and you haven't seen this, then you get what you're looking for. When I saw Loki get purged, I instantly thought back to the rumor that like this is going to be like a bait and switch. And I'm like, wow, super baited, super switched. And I was trying to decide, like, am I even mad about it? Because like, what are the odds you're going to get Hiddleston to just keep coming back and keep coming back for Loki's in multiple phases? And they have to have a plan. And like, I kind of like the Sylvie, and it's the same character, just in a different kind of form. And that's kind of cool. And I was already talking myself into it because I felt real. Like I'm like, yeah, this show could absolutely kill Loki. And then the reveal that like he is alive and being greeted by the ghosts of Loki, past, present, and future, a Christmas Loki carol. I'm like, fuck. But the thing is that's just a shocking, mind blowing idea, but it could be bullshit. Like we'll have to watch the next episode to see. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. Like, you're right. This could just keep kicking on down the line exactly the same way to like season 1 of Leftovers. But like if they buckle down and open up the can in the last 2 episodes, then I think all will be forgiven. If not, obviously, you're going to be pissed. It seems like. And I imagine a lot of other people will too.
It's really about like, what am I expecting out of this show? Because if I'm expecting the timey-wimey exploration of sci-fi time travel tropes, I don't think I'm going to get it here. Earlier I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to get something, really interesting from a plot perspective, but it doesn't seem like they're going that direction. It seems more like everybody blew the lid off of this thing, episode 1, with like the Krang stuff, or Kang rather. And now we're just kind of waiting for them to spool that story out in whatever form it takes here. And I guess I'm okay with that because I don't know the story really. Like you gave me a brief synopsis of it, but it'll be interesting to watch. It's just not exactly what I kind of expected from this really ambitious Loki project with multiple timelines and a trickster god and all that stuff. It's not quite delivering on that kind of promise, but it is delivering in a lot of other areas. So it's not like this is a bad show. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. I don't know if I should. I don't know where I stand on punishing the show for people being like in on the Kang reveal, if it indeed is going to be a Kang reveal, because it's like saying like when you see the first Iron Man, if you're an Iron Man comics fan, it's like, I wonder if in Iron Man 2 they're going to explore like some kind of a substance abuse issue with Tony Stark, like that, like that could be an allude. And it's like, well, Tony Stark is a Marvel property. He had a famous character defining substance abuse arc in the comics. Like if you're aware of that, does it ruin the reveal when it turns out he's struggling with like dependency on his you know, the chest stuff and the drugs he's taking. He's using alcohol and drugs to take. Like, I don't know. So like if someone knew enough about Marvel lore to know like, oh yeah, this is kind of resembles these two plots, and if you kind of squint, like that's what I remember I said this in the first podcast. Like I was saying, like, a lot of people who are diving for that aren't, you know, that aren't otherwise steeped in this lore, that are diving for this kind of stuff, might spoil it for them, because I think that's the worst place to be in. If you've been reading Marvel comics for 30 years and you're just like, fuck, you're like, you know, Leo DiCaprio sitting forward and pointing like, I know this reference. Like, that's probably cool to see that come. But if you have none of that and you're just getting like the Reddit high points, it's for like some kind of like, prediction satisfaction, I think it's probably negative to your viewing experience.
I would think so.
Because you don't have any of the emotional. You don't have any of the reverence and emotional connection to the lore, and you also don't have the surprise factor. So what do you have? You just have like, oh, yep, you know, slot A went into tab B, duh. And I think that's bad.
Yeah, but it becomes perfunctory. Yeah. It's just, so it's really about recalibrating my expectations, I think. Not expecting the world from this show, just expecting a solidly told story with some engaging characters and some really good dialogue. And, you know, maybe we'll get more than that, and that'll be a pleasant surprise.
I do wonder, because I feel like I've followed a few of the big Marvel podcasts and personalities that have like done deep dives into WandaVision and the Winter Soldier and Falcon and all that stuff. And I guess I do worry a little bit long term for Marvel, like not long term because it's got, you know, what can kill Marvel at this point. But like the fact that like if 3 out of 3 shows feel a little bit like the football being pulled out of Charlie Brown, where it's like this amazing speculation, like what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this, and wouldn't it be awesome? And then none of them really pan out to those levels, are like, will people get bored with that? Like, well, why am I getting hyped up for all these like crazy comic book, you know, shenanigans and deep lore when like it's all only going to be like a surface level? I wonder what that will do to like this cottage industry that's kind of spinning up around, you know, this huge television thing. Kind of like, you know, what if season 1, 2, and 3 of Leftovers have been disappointing? Mm-hmm. You know, probably wouldn't have been a great podcast for us. Anyway,
and nobody would have cared because it's just
that's true. Not a lot of people were watching it back in the day, were they?
No, definitely not. But a lot of people are watching this, and I think like it'd be hard to kill this gravy train at this point, right? To derail this thing would take some time and almost deliberate effort. Like, you know what? I mean, we've got billions of dollars. Let's just slack. Let's just coast and let it be what it's going to be. And maybe 10 years from now, people would get tired of this, them coasting. But
I mean, I feel like Star Wars has now, as a multi-generational project, tried to alienate and fracture its fan base,
and it's still making billions.
They still haven't quite succeeded. So yeah, even if that's saying something.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into this episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
We start off with the young Loki variant of Sylvie being captured by the TVA, but before they can prune her, she steals a TIM pad and escapes. This was not like some big reveal when we found out that this was her, right? This was just pretty obvious at the beginning.
I thought so. I thought it was definitely. Okay. I was surprised because I don't know what about her. I mean, I guess just the existence of the variant. But the thing is like, so I still don't know that this makes a lot of sense, because if she's a variant, she's a variant at the time she popped out of wherever she came from, because it's not the canonical Loki that's from the sacred timeline. So why wait until she's like precocious 12-year-old goddess before you do something about her?
That is a little confusing,
you know. Especially if that's the other thing, like
you probably couldn't, right? Because doesn't it get past the red line and then you can't, and then all hell breaks loose in the timeline?
But maybe she's a slight variant. So like it took 12 years for the spike to, because like I don't think that all red line events are the same. Like some red line events might be like 12 years out from the Nexus event. Some red line might be 5 minutes from the Nexus event. And But like, I don't, like, and the other thing is like, well, they've got all the time in the world because they can come back at any point in time, but they can't because they established that. Like, once you got a variant, you can only like pop back into its real time history. You can't like go back to stop the variant from happening. So but I think that's a little, they're kind of smart in that they've been a little cagey about the details of these rules, because we just don't know.
Yeah.
All we have is a tragic story of like this little girl playing in her castle in Asgard and getting snatched off and try to be Persian. And also, like, I thought it was really effective how they high speed showed her hustling through the stuff as an adult. It was amusing to see Loki go through all these scanners and all this stuff, but like a small child, it felt horrifying. You know,
pruning a small child makes them look real bad. And, you know, they couldn't have done this until the episode where they were going to reveal, hey, these guys are not what they seem to be.
Yeah. And just the experience of going through this like really officious, bureaucratic process as a child. And then the other thing, I guess, is Ravonna seems to be kind of like wrapped up in this original sin. She was the B-15 of her time, or the Mobius that let the variant slip through her grasp, and worse than that, steal a time pad from her. Makes me wonder, how the hell did she get into the position she's in, relatively high up in the TVA? If she
pruned all the other TVA officers who were like figuring out their variants. I don't know.
Yeah. And I almost wondered, like, because like I had this, when I was watching this, I had this theory about, well, maybe they just, I think we talked about this last week, that like, well, maybe with these variants that are working for the TVA, if they become self-aware, they just reset them. And maybe that's when they get bounced to a new phase of their career. But it seems like Ravonna at the end of the episode had complete knowledge of her being a TVA goon and fucking up the Loki situation. So it's like, nah, she didn't get reset when she went from time cop to judge.
Yeah. So
that kind of blew that theory out of the water. But yeah, I have a lot of questions about where they were going with this point in time and all that.
Did you recognize Judith Grimes from The Walking Dead?
Damn it. I knew that I had seen her somewhere, but I did not. I didn't recognize that, the boots and the hat, you know? Right?
I had to look her up because it was nagging me. I was just like, man, I know I've seen her somewhere.
Yeah, I was like, it must have been, because I was thinking, I was running through all the places I could have seen her at, like, his Dark Materials, because I watched all that stuff with Cecily and so, and I was like, yeah, where's it? Stranger Things? No, I couldn't have. Of course, just Judith Grimes.
So we go back to modern day, where or whatever time it is. It's the TVA. Who knows? Time works different there. Ravonna catches some shit from the Timekeepers and rolls it downhill to Mobius. And he tells her he needs access to C20. Ravonna says, no, can't. She's dead. Killed by Sylvie, who scrambled her brain. And then she tells him to keep that a secret and to go find the other Loki variants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder, because like Ravonna, is she in on the Timekeeper? No, there's no way she's in on the Timekeepers being robots, because she's just so like visibly affected by her audience with them. I wonder why she's this kind of like giant prick, purging her own officers and whatnot. I wonder if it's like because she feels like such a failure and the Timekeepers have still given her extra like faith and authority, so she's willing to carry their water for them in very distasteful ways.
That could be. I get the feeling like Ravonna has, I don't know, I believe her when the one thing she says is true this episode is when she tells Mobius that she's trying to protect him by not letting him speak to the Loki variant, to Sylvie. Because
why do you think that's true?
Because I think if he speaks to Sylvie, he'll realize that he's a variant and he'll be pruned. And she knows this because she knows what's up, right? She knows that all of the TVA agents are variants, right?
Does she? Or does she think that this is like high heresy and some kind of delusion that the Loki, like if the, that's my first thought. If like, if you enchant me, you can show me your memories and it can't be any other thing because you lack the ability to implant new memories. My first thought is like, well, that's bullshit. And maybe the judge is like purging people who have this like, it's like a mental contagion. Like, well, if you're infected with these false memories and you can't shut up about them and you're going to make everybody else question the nature of their existence, if that's false, then you got to contain and like purge that information.
Yeah,
but I didn't get that. Like, that's why I guess I was trying to decide whether Ravonna is what was in on it and to what level. She clearly didn't know the Timekeepers were robots. I think that's clear.
I think so. Yeah.
But you think she knew about the true nature of the TVA and the fact that she herself
felt like it. I couldn't point to one thing that says, that's definitely true, but
she's definitely willing to do their dirty work and do things that other TVA personnel find distasteful and disloyal.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is that like they've made her feel like she owes them, for not fucking purging her for screwing the pooch however many years ago this whole Sylvie thing happened.
Yeah. So we go back to Lamentis, where Sylvie tells Loki her life story of being on the run from the TVA. As the world crashes down around them. And some stuff about like the universe manifesting chaos to try and break free. I don't know what it's breaking free of, what the universe can break free of, but
it's like the information wants to be free, and the TVA is constraining it. So like, and I guess it's very Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, right? Life finds a way. Mm-hmm. Like if you're trying to beat it into some unnatural shape, it's going to fucking, it's going to be female frog genes flipping male so they can get you pregnant and et cetera, et cetera. We've all seen Jurassic Park. I think they're going for that the universe wants a certain amount of freedom of information and even entropy. Like things should be destroyed and things need to be recreated. And this is an unnatural way to do it. I like that. I thought that was that kind of timey-wimey philosophical stuff that I really like.
Yeah, it was neat. It got me geared up for maybe them doing some more interesting stuff, and we'll see maybe the next 2 episodes. But I'm not holding out hope too much because that way lies madness.
But it's also like it's also challenging, I think, a viewer's perception, because usually when if you had a faction that was for order and a faction for chaos, who would you think is good? Who would you think is evil? Usually we assume
chaos
we associate
be naturally evil. Yeah.
Right. But yet, that is not necessarily true.
And we talked about the monstrous nature of what the TVA does, right? How many lives they've expunged by eliminating timelines. That stuff on the face of it seems kind of evil. The agents of order here.
Fascists can bring order in the world and make the trains run on time, but at what fucking cost? And if you look at how many people the TVA has pruned from existence, you're talking like genocide a million times over. Mm-hmm. It's choosing which civilizations get wiped out, which ones don't, on what basis.
Yeah, and there's something super telling when Ravonna and Mobius are talking, and she says like, hey, we do something really important here. We preserve what we have in the TVA. And I'm like, well, that's not, that seems evil. That seems like preserving the status quo for your own benefit, and putting millions of people's lives in the crossfire for it. That seems on the face of it evil.
Yeah, anyone, like, beware of anyone that says like this system or these individuals are the only thing that stands in between, chaos and lawlessness and death and destruction. It's like, I don't know, that it seems pretty suspect. And
that it's worth preserving for the sake of preserving it, because if it's not good, it's not worth preserving. And if it's doing harm to other people, it may not be worth preserving. So then we go to Mobius and the TVA keeping watch over their sensors to try and find the variants. They've I feel like they've hit like the turbo button on their 486 that's now like made it run twice as fast, and so they can detect Nexus events pretty easy. But they're still not getting anything.
Yeah, this makes I think this is a bit of a plot hole that they just, because they only touch on it in this one scene, and this scene is literally like edited to be 15 seconds long, but it kind of gives up the ghost. If there was like a more like Loki variant dial that you could turn up, then what the hell did you need to have Owen Wilson kidnap another variant to think like a Loki for and all that kind of stuff? Because again, and this is 5 minutes before this episode, Sylvie asserts that she has thousands of these in-time events no survivors to hide in across God knows how many times and places and dimensions. So how the hell can you just like, well, we got the Loki filters turned up on high. We've really turned up the contrast on the Loki timeline filter. I'm like, but there again, I think I'm willing to let the writer get away with one or two things that they, been loosey-goosey about rules for these type of purposes. Because, yeah, you every once in a while a plot needs to make a leap to get to the place in a story, to save time, blah, 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 to make it interesting. And as long as it's only one or two, I'm willing to roll with that. But I don't think this literally makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the more important thing that happens in the scene is Mobius keeps the secret about C20. When B-15's asking him about it, it's like, no, she's dead. And that'll all come crashing down eventually, but we'll get there. Loki then pep talks Sylvie over on Lamentis, who's questioning the purpose of her own existence, which sets off the TVA alarms. As the planets destroy, the TVA opens 2 portals and saves them, but then immediately arrests them, obviously. And Moby throws Loki into a portal, which is a memory prison, where Lady Sif knees him in the balls and punches him over and over again.
Yeah, if you don't, because like if you're like a lot of people who are very shaky on the Thor back catalog, Lady Sif is one of the Warriors 3, one of Thor's famous companions that follow him into all of his battles, and they've been very minor characters even in the Thor universe. So but yeah, this is probably the one that they could get to show up and knee him in the groin for a day of shooting. I'm
sure they all lined up for that. They were all like, hire. This is just the one they chose.
A couple of things. I actually thought whatever special effects work they did, the volume, green screen, whatever, worked a lot better in this episode when they're just, they're not trying to walk through a football field or run up against a wall that's being blown up or not. Whenever they just kind of sitting there and I thought the stuff looked way more solid, and it was actually kind of spellbinding, the whole planet getting bigger and bigger and sharding itself and crashing in and fucking up. I thought that stuff was really cool. There's a very what is it, Deep Impact, like a little very Elijah Woods, like doomed lovers at the edge of collapse. But what is it about the 2 Lokis kissing or about to have a romantic interlude with themselves? What is that that made like the biggest spike in TVA history?
I don't know. I was hoping that Loki would tell Mobius what happened so he could explain why it caused such a ruckus at the TVA.
I mean, they did. And like the opinion was, well, you're about to do something so like incestuously, narcissistically, cosmically up your ass stupid that. But I'm like,
what does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know. I've watched Game of Thrones, man. Like, I've seen some fucked up relationship dynamics, and where were you guys to stop that? Now I do think like that there's a lot of compelling evidence that there is this like kind of band of Lokis who is the freedom fighters of the Marvel universe against this Time Authority hegemony. And I wonder if like, kind of like in the Matrix plays with this concept of like the idea that Neo is born with this innate love of humankind, but every once in a while it's born like, instead of like a generalized love, it's personified in one person, like Trinity, right? And that's stronger. That's what allows you to break out of a loop and stuff. I wonder if they're like, because this guy is a pop culture cribber. Like, he cut his teeth on Rick and Morty, which is one of the all-time apex pop culture cribbing predators. I wonder if he's going for something like that, where it's like, yeah, the Lokis have kind of like put their heads together and they tried to do this, they tried to do that, but like this, like a genuine bond of love between a Loki, where they're no longer capable of betraying each other because they got the selfless love that extends beyond their own skin. I wonder if they're going for something like that, but it's still, I don't know. You're still fucking an alternate unit. I mean, this is Rick fucking himself at the Council of the Ricks.
Do you remember way back in episode 1, maybe episode 2, we were talking about how cool it would be when Loki has to fight himself? It's like, Loki having to take on another variant Loki. Wouldn't that be awesome? This is the exact opposite and much better than I could have hoped for with Loki fighting Loki. It's Loki loving Loki, and it makes the most sense for his character, and it's also the most disturbing option. I love it. Yeah, that part is great.
I agree. And here's where like I really like some of this dialogue. And again, it's like I don't know how, because like I can see a person saying, well, this is they're having an emotional moment because, you know, Owen Wilson saying you're an asshole and a bad friend, which is supposed to wound Loki because they have some kind of relationship together. And I like Loki's, one last folksy dopey insult from the folksy dope. And then he's like, one last desperate trick from the desperate trickster. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like
tight,
that.
Man.
The dialogue's really tight and it's fun. And these guys are having a lot of fun saying it. And then, you know, Loki trying to get that last desperate, but it's the truth. But this is Loki could be subtitled "The Boy Who that Cries Wolf" because in at least 3 instances in this series so far, the fact that he lies all the time has kept people believing the actual truth, you know, or at least the truth as he sees it. I thought that was an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, when lying is your persona, that's gonna happen.
I also really liked with this Lady Sif stuff. Like they kept on making me fall for the whole, you know, him giving the impassioned speech that they need to work together and trust. And it just makes her rack him harder. You know, like she like grabs him by the shoulders and like looks thoughtful, but it's just so she get the leverage to get the get that knee right in between his divine testicles. I thought that stuff was funny and it kept working every single time. He's like, no, for real this time. Please don't. No, you're going to get racked. Except for, I guess, at the last time he avoided the racking. So
yeah, she just left him with the emotional bomb that is the line, "You're alone and you'll always be alone."
Which probably as an Asgardian god probably hurts worse than any physical trauma that you can get. I
assume so. If that shot lands right to the testicles of his heart, yeah.
Yeah. Do frost giants have external genitalia? Loki doesn't look like this. This is the image of the Loki wants us to see as him as an Asgardian. So like I don't even know. Like this could just be he could be Kindle down there and just doing a soccer style fall. Right, to try to curry favor with Lady Sif.
They're wearing loincloths, man. So I assume there's something going on down there.
That's true.
Frost giants don't cover their groin just for the fun of it.
It's a decoy. They cover the groin, making you think that there's something there to draw attention. It's like the same reason the Punisher canonically wears a skull on his chest. It attracts all the bullets to his bulletproof vest. So, you know,
is that a thing?
It's the first. Yeah, that's what he says. That's why he paints a big skull on his bulletproof vest, is so it attracts gunfire.
Wouldn't a target work better? Shouldn't he be Target Man instead of the Punisher or something?
Who is the guy? Bullseye. Bullseye, another Daredevil spinoff, beat him to it, I guess.
Okay. Sounds good. I like the theremin music in some of these scenes, like the way they're blending a modern aesthetic with the 50s sci-fi music stuff is really good. I'm for sure. Thoroughly enjoying that. We kind of skipped over a few scenes. We've already talked about like some of that stuff with Mobius and Loki, but we'll get to it again, I suppose. Yeah, so Mobius asks Ravonna if he can interview Sylvie, and she says nope, nobody speaks with that variant, and then sends him back to work on his own Loki. So he goes off to I think try and sneak an interview with Sylvie. Goes over to her cell, but there's too much security on it to get in, so instead he just chats with B-15, who asks him what Loki says, and he says Loki said the TVA is lying to us. And that seems to ring a bell with her, because she's obviously been mind controlled before.
Right. Oh, that's the thing. Because I was like, man, these people are really like hanging on to their sanity by their fingernails. If like just a mere what if your bosses are manipulating you, like causes them to instantly like unionize and seize the means of production. I think, but you're right. She actually got enchanted, so she actually saw firsthand the members. But again, I mean, I know that they did deal with it. There is literally a line of dialogue with like, well, how do we know that this when she enchanted her mind that they didn't plant the memories? Well, she can't do that. You can't. That's I'm taking Loki's fucking word at what he understands this person can do. from like a 30-second explanation of how it works on a train.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a Loki talking to another Loki that's not trying. Like there's a couple things where it's like I'm not sure the logic all tracks all the way through here, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it like a triumph of performance that we can tell when a Loki is being dishonest? Because I feel like there's almost always something in, Hiddleston's eyes that says like, I am trying to pull one over on Mobius versus I honestly believe this thing. And maybe they're duping me, right? Maybe I'm going to be the sucker who's fallen for Loki's bullshit 2 episodes from now. But I always can detect a hint of honesty in the things he says that the show has shown me are true.
But he's also that's all the mind fuck of it, right? Because like Loki, we talked about the fact that like Loki, it's a deliberate strategy for him to do the cartoonish kind of like mischievous pranks and the just I can't believe you think I'm so stupid you're gonna tell me this bald-faced lie, to get you so used to doing that and underestimating them that then he, has the super duper complex plan. But also Loki canonically is not that smart and gets in over his head. So like it's really tough. Is he this good of a liar? I mean, he should be, right?
Is he like dosing his falsehoods with a little bit of truth?
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that there's like this
homeopathic truth.
I feel like it's a trope, right? Whenever you have a bad guy that gets redeemed, and this happens a lot, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, etc. Is that you have to have a scene where the former villain has, in like a moment of private, like he finds in a room because he's separated from the heroes like a uber powerful weapon, and he kind of like looks thoughtfully at it, and then like they cut away to the other team, and then the question is the former villain who's now the hero going to revert back to his villainous ways now that he has is he going to show up with the super weapon and save the day? Is he going to show up with the super weapon, kill the villain, but then resume to take the villain's throne? Or is he going to like, I don't even want the temptation and eschew the weapon? And I feel like that's the only way I'll actually trust that Loki is a good guy, is if there's some kind of like, there's nobody's observing him, there's no pressure, and he just does the right thing organically. And I wonder if we'll get that in the series, or if that's something that'll be happening in like that. That's a big question I have, is like whether, they're going to hand the reins over to Sylvie character, whether they're going to keep Tom around as this kind of like traditional Loki, and whether they're going to have him go full on hero, anti-hero. Like, are we going to come out of this still suspecting him, etc., or they're going to deal with this in future movies?
Yeah, all good questions. So the time loops and crotch shots eventually break Loki, and he apologized to Sif for being a narcissist. She, drops that emotional bomb on him, but at least he doesn't get a knee to the groin. Then Mobius retrieves him for an interview and wants to know, what caused the Nexus event on Lamentis. Loki won't tell him, and there's this kind of back and forth here between them where I don't know. He eventually gets Loki's goat, and by telling him that Sylvie's dead, and Loki gets pissed off until Mobius admits that it's a lie. And then Mobius keeps pressing him until he shouts at him that everyone in the TVA is a variant. Mobius doesn't believe him, or does he? It's tough to tell. But then Loki zings him on the way out by saying he's the best liar in the place because he's lying to himself.
Mm-hmm. Also, there's an interesting tie-in to what the Loki's talked about that the universe wants to be free and chaos is the ultimate result of that, because Mobius directly he doesn't directly reference, but he indirectly references by saying, you like her, this sort of sick narcissistic relationship. It's total chaos. I think that you're supposed to understand that you're supposed to put those two connections together and show that like this kind of looking in the mirror and loving what you see kind of thing is the chaos that's ultimately the universe is trying to break free out of the TVA's grip. Gotcha.
I love the line, and I so rarely hear it. I don't know if this is like a throwback thing or what, but I ought to box your ears.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know exactly what that means. but I know that it means like you're out of line.
I think it literally means like cuff you upside the head, like, you know.
Okay. All right. Just slap you.
Yeah, like drub you in the side of the head. Yeah.
Okay. Boxing your ears just seems like a funny visual. But
you cut them off, you put them in a nice box. You're going to literally box their ears.
Oh, yeah. You could do that too. All right. B-15 has a crisis of conscience in the hall and takes Sylvie through a portal. Just a real quick scene there.
What do you think? But wait, she actually looked at this like propaganda. Did you get them all? You know, purge without mercy propaganda. Was that just to was that misdirection on the show's part, making us think that she's going to come in here, purge rod blazing, what she did, and like purge the fuck out of, you know, Lady Loki? Or was this, did you catch some kind of larger meaning to that?
No larger meaning. I felt like it was the show throwing the question mark to us. Like,
I wondered if you're supposed to, I wonder if it's like her realizing, you know, well, no, we didn't get them all because we're perhaps all variants.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It could be either. I just thought that was interesting. And, you know, B-15 is doing a lot of nuance, performancing here, as far as like, you know, what's going on behind her eyes and what she's thinking and feeling. I thought the One Me did a really great job of kind of like infusing all that and making a lot of like kind of shades of gray and keeping you question about what she's going to do up until she does it. Yeah.
So we go back to Mobius, who's lost in thought as he closes Loki's case in Ravona's office. Ravona tells him that the Timekeepers wanted to be present when they personally terminate Sylvie and the other Loki as well. Mobius asks a bunch of questions about Sylvie and C20 to try and get to the truth. And Ravona just kind of deflects here, says, hey, what we do is important because it preserves what we have here. Big red flag in my mind. And he pretends to be cool, but then switches out his temp pad with hers when she turns her back and takes his leave.
Do you think that they're also drawing some kind of connection between Mobius and Ravona and the relationship between Loki and Sylvie?
I didn't really pick up on
says
that. Are you?
If you look at a timeline, friendships, like, and I think there's something more than that. But like Loki also protested that they're like just friends as well. I wonder if because they're both preeminent. Like he seems to be like the lead investigator or one of the lead investigators, maybe the only lead investigator. Although she alludes to others. I wonder if they had like in their past, like if they have an actual romantic connection similar to the one that Loki and Lady Loki, Sylvie has. They worked at the same jet ski dealership.
Yeah.
They were married. They were husband and wife owners of a jet ski dealership.
Hey man, it's
the only
possible.
thing that makes sense. But I like that because like
maybe he's been reset so many times that, you know, they had a relationship in the past, even at the TVA, and he doesn't know of it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that when they set up those kind of like parallels where, you know, because like if things look bad and the coalition of Lokis need someone in their corner, like, you know, these two rediscovering their connection to each other and flipping sides would be a huge blow to the TVA, it seems like. And maybe they're setting that up with this dialogue that seems to be making these connections. Or maybe I'm just crazy and seeing things.
Could be. All right, then B-15 takes Sylvie to the, was it Alabama apocalypse? The hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
And asked her what she did to her when she took over her mind. And Sylvie says, hey, that's your real life. You're all variants. And then she shows B-15 a few more memories. And B-15's on board, asks, what now?
Which is another, like, you know, this scene could be very silly. Like, I've seen a similar scene on Star Trek The Next Generation be laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
But like the performances here, like you're giving a performance of someone reliving an intense and profound personal experience with just 15 seconds of their face. Mm-hmm. No dialogue, no cut to a flashback or some kind of thing as her as a little girl or kissing her first boyfriend, or it just watching her emote. I thought it was really, really nice. And
you can't even
shows
do
a lot
like,
of confidence they have in the performers.
In this scene, you can't even do like a single tear rolling down the cheek, right? Because it's raining. So that's not even going to work. Yeah, your hands are kind of tied. So yeah, she does a great job. Um, then we go to Mobius using Ravona's TIMPad to look up C20's file, which says deceased, and he watches a video interview of her telling the TVA all about her previous life and that she's a variant. And we also see Ravona in that video. So
that's where the look on her face was kind of like, I wasn't sure if
the flares for me.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like I think you saw that and was like, God damn it. She's on to the truth, where I got like a person who is looking at a third part, maybe looking at the time authority, the TVA timekeepers themselves, kind of like, Jesus, what are we going to do? Like, I don't know. And I'm not sure which, because that's the thing. I know she's in on part of the conspiracy, but I'm not sure if it's because of her lack of confidence in her own abilities and the way that the timekeepers have cultivated that in her, whoever the fuck the timekeepers are at this point, or if it's she knows everything and is like truly invested in maintaining this power structure for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, maybe she is the timekeeper.
It's possible. Yeah.
But she didn't like, oh, okay. Then we go back to like, sure, she's given the greatest lying performance of all time when she, reacts. Yeah. Cause I don't think she knew that the timekeepers were robots, but
who maintains the timekeepers? Like, is this just like, fantasy robots that don't ever need maintenance, that run forever?
They've gone back and stolen every variant of a technician that used to service the Showbiz pizza parlor places. And, if you can fix a Billy Bob bear or a I don't know, a Chuck E. Cheese, you can you can for sure fucking fix a timekeeper, because they just sit, they don't even play drums or guitars or like keep time with their feet. They just sit there on a fucking throne and make snide remarks. That's real easy. They
looked pretty bad, like real fucking bad in the show. And I was thinking, like, why do they look so bad? Is this a budget thing? Is this a time thing? That explains it. If they're just Showbiz pizza animals or animatronics.
You thought they looked bad? I thought they looked. I thought they looked
pretty
very
terrible.
I thought they looked very intentionally Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I was like, I think at this point they're at least the second step of the Martin reveal. As when this episode begins of them being evil, and then like literally one of their heads popping off and her saying, "My God, it's a robot." That's the stage 3 for all the dum-dums that didn't get it up to there. We're watching, reading shit on their phones while they're watching this thing.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I felt
when they pop
way.
its head off and it's revealed that these are robots, I'm like, okay, well that makes sense why it would look so bad, because it's but I don't know, we've seen androids in the MCU that look a hell of a lot better than this. What are they doing with these second-rate, for example, androids?
Yeah,
the fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't need to fuel anybody but credulous TVA personnel that have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, maybe,
I suppose. Yeah. So they skimped on the budget there. Damn. I've seen their HQ. They could probably afford better animatronics.
That's why they try to hide it. That's why they try to hide it. If a person with half a brain shows up there, like, this is what the hell? This is. I didn't think they looked that bad, honestly, but I did think they were supposed to look a little bit Wizard of Oz cheesy.
Yeah. So I did have a question here. Like, what if Mobius were to go back to the same Nexus event that B-15 is in currently, where she's talking with Sylvie? Would C20 be there? She wouldn't, right? Because they've pulled her out, but he's going back necessarily.
When you're purged,
in time.
You're like gone. Like when you're purged, you're just done. Same way as like when they cleanse a timeline, that's not like.
But you're not.
You can't go back to that timeline
right?
again. It's just I think it does. I think it goes back and forwards through time and just erases you from existence.
Well,
like deletes you.
At some point, like the variant of Loki that is our Loki became a variant, right? Like it wouldn't go back and purge him from the sacred timeline.
Well, no, you're right about that. But the variant, like from the moment the branch, because I guess it is a branch. So when they prune it, I think that literally means like it's gone. That branch is gone. Like if you want to go back and see that pruned branch, you can't. It's gone. It's been put through the wood chipper. It doesn't exist anymore. The original branch is there, but the offshoot's just gone. Like it never happened. And there's
Gotcha.
no way to like revisit that Loki or revisit that Loki's timeline. Like, especially when they fire off the canister, that like seals off the whole fucking thing in a crazy way.
Yeah. All right. Loki's suffering in the Sif file again when Mobius comes through the portal and makes Loki promise that what he said about them being variants is real. He does, and Mobius trusts him. As dumb as that sounds.
Yeah. I know. Which is makes me think that it wouldn't surprise me at the end of the series that Loki's still kind of bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you like him, but he's still unambiguously either an anti-hero, if not an outright, stylish and cool and understandable villain, and that his ultimate change will happen later on. But I don't know, like, if you want to do character development on a singular character, hey, a 6-episode series with their name on it might be better than Thor: Love and Thunder, where the name Loki does not appear at all, and he would like presumably be a side part of that anyway. But I mean, shit, they had Vision and Wanda fall in love in the margins of like 3 different movies, so maybe that's exactly what they'll do. I mean, they kind of like cultivated this shit into us as an audience that like we're like, oh yeah, it's cool to get 3 minutes of character development of our important characters every 3 years. Yeah, we can track that. We can totally track that. And if we can't, guess what? Disney will make a Legends package that's 3 minutes long that'll put all those sequences together so that we will.
Sure. So yeah, he tells Loki, hey, you were right about us being variants, and you got to trust me if you want to save Sylvie. So they exit through the portal. They find Ravonna and some guards waiting for them. And then Mobius realizes, we're fucked. So he tells Ravonna that, he hopes he had a jet ski in a previous life, and then she has him pruned. Boom, he's gone. Then she goes to see Sylvie and realizes that B-15 has been compromised too. And so she puts on an alert for her. This is where my, oh boy, they're killing off the big stars so they won't have to pay the big bucks next season started to kick in. And I'm like, oh, Owen Wilson's gone. He's not coming back. And then what they do to Loki here in a minute, to Tom Hiddleston, I'm like, shit, this is where it was always meant to go. And I'm disappointed. But then, with the post-credit sequence, I was freshly reappointed. I don't know. Renewed hope for Hiddleston being in the series, and by proxy, renewed hope for Owen Wilson continuing in the series, because he goes to the same place that Loki went. So I assume, right?
And also like this goes back to our, the original conception of Mobius from the comics was that he was like just an infinite supply of clones. And if like Loki's going to some kind of post-purge heaven or deliberate so there's 2 possibilities. Like, when you're getting purged, you actually go to some kind of like timeless thing where all your purge copies go to, or maybe all the purge copies go to something. They're not actually being destroyed. They're being put into some kind of outside the universe place, which I think that's kind of interesting. Or it could be that like there's some kind of techno trickery. But it'd be interesting to see like if Mobius goes to like there's a whole infinite variations of Owen Wilson in slightly different outfits and garbs and facial hair and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's him from Grand Budapest. There's him from.
I wasn't even thinking that. Yeah. There's all these different Owen Wilsons. That would be really funny if they went and like CGI'd a whole like every role that he's ever had.
Life Aquatic. Just all of a Wedding Crash. Sure, bring them all in.
It would be. I think that'd be kind of interesting, and it would also pay a nice little homage to the character's roots as being these infinite kind of clones.
Yeah, no, that could be cool. My mind is swimming with the possibilities of this post-credit sequence.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not like I really do hold out a lot of hope that this thing's going to do something mind blowing.
I think that's setting yourself up for failure.
Okay.
Because I was holding out hope that they were doing something mind-blowing with the stuff on Lamentis, and they did not. That turned out to be very straightforward. It was them trying and failing to get off a planet, and that was it.
But they needed that. I mean, yeah, but they did need that episode, though, right? Because if they're going to base their... Like, if their relationship's going to be what brings down the TVA, they got to give them at least 40 minutes to build that fucking relationship. So like even if like nothing happened, like that was still like I mean I it goes back to what you're saying. Like, if they don't blow our minds or don't deliver a satisfying conclusion, then you're right. Like, people are going to, I think, or at least people like yourself and probably me too, are going to go back and look at that third episode as, well, what the hell? Because, you know, nothing really happened and the status quo never really changed and whatnot. But if they do something really big that really springboards a new era into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or even just for this Loki character. And you know, so what define mind blowing? To me, mind blowing means a very clever twist on the facts and scenarios that we already saw, that we see on the table that no one really saw coming.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be hard. But like, honestly, I don't see like this Kang the Conqueror shit that we talk about in the feedback. I don't see how they're going to pull that off, especially if it's going to be like they're going to tie it into the Reed Richards later, who again is not going to hit the screen until 2023 at the fucking earliest. That's what I'm talking about. Like, so like that they can blow my mind by doing that. Like if they actually like, because I think the Kang the Conqueror stuff, you know, apologies to everyone who's written in about it, I do think that's a little bit some of the more far flights of fancy that people engaged in with Winter Soldier, Falcon, and the WandaVision. I think that's going to be this season's that kind of like, well, okay, that'd have been cool, but like, where are the parts that they weren't even really there? Like that's you can't kick off a. But I don't know. That's the other thing is like, do you think that Marvel has enough confidence in these shows that they can kick? Like that they like if Disney Plus had always been a TV service, do you think that they debut Thanos in a Marvel TV show? Like the big bad for an entire 2-phase block. Do you think they roll him out in one of their private channel TV shows, or do you think they keep him as like a post-credit reveal and a major Marvel release, like an Avengers movie?
Probably the latter.
I kind of think same. So like, I just don't believe they're going to, like, because like Kang the Conqueror sounds like he's like got major next level phase kind of villain vibes to him. I don't think they roll him out in a TV show. Which is why, like, I don't think some of, like, we're about to talk about some of these Val theories and stuff right before the feedback section. Like, I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus is going to be like the end all be all of villains in the universe too. But maybe that's just a prejudice I'm going to have. And even if Marvel thinks that, like, I don't know if these shows continue to be popular, that will continue to be the case, that they're like afraid to do big things in a television show. Because, oh shit, and people won't watch it, and then, or not everyone will see it, and then that'll hurt their movie performance, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, even if they don't get to like the reveal of Kang, if that's where they're going with this, I still feel like they've done a lot of setup here in this TV show, right?
Right.
If you're not familiar with the Timekeepers in the TVA, and you go into a movie and they reveal Kang, you're probably going to be at least a little confused, or feel like you're left out of the loop.
Exactly. And I know, like, in real life comics, every once in a while you get an episode where they're definitely pulling in stuff that happened in like 3 or 4 different crossovers. But like one comic will have 16 different editors' notes, which are these little yellow boxes with an asterisk that says "See Fantastic Four, episode 407 for more details." Like, if you get a comic book that's got like 6 of those, it's a fucking mess. Because like, well, shit. And I always thought this as a 13-year-old. I'm like. Yeah. Well, that fucking, I look it up and I'm like, well, that plot line happened 3 years ago. There's no possible way I can get that comic because my local comic book store is out of stock. It was a popular issue. Like, and like, if I got to get 6 of them, like this comic is going to have no relevance to my life. And Marvel has worked because that has not been the case. Like, people are spending billions of dollars for every movie to make sure they get that next installment. They're collecting the entire series. If people start like, you know, well, this is Fantastic Four 407. Not sure I'm into that. That's going to take away from all that.
Yeah, we'll see, because that's all marketing, right? Like, those editors' notes are just, hey, go buy another issue, or like, you know, here's a continuation of the story. That's what these alternate universes and crossover things are in the first place. I never
saw them. I never saw them as marketing. Like, but you're right. It is a bit of drink more Ovaltine. Like, that's the whole reason they do crossovers. Like, I always thought it's like, oh, it must be because there's organic excitement about getting all these, like, yo, get the X-Men and the Avengers together. Do a whole maybe narrative sometimes. Through like. And I'm sure it's not that, you know, it's not like Kevin Feige or I still don't know, like 12 years in this experiment. I can't pronounce this guy's name. Need to fix that. But like, he's obviously got a lot of passion for the universe, but obviously this is with an eye to make a whole bunch of money, you know. Yeah. 22 films making $1 billion a piece. That's a lot of money for the mouse. I wonder, but I was so naive. I always thought that was just like, you know, a way of them building more lore and making connections to things and like efficient storytelling. Cause like otherwise you'd have to have a 6-page digression to what happened in a 2-year-old comic book to like fill people in. So this is kind of like, but yeah, you're right. It's also probably
yeah, and the temptation is to do that with television crossovers too, right? I mean, it's not like the same mechanisms won't work, and they'll probably work better now because you were talking about, you know, you couldn't get hold of the comic book back in the day. Well, you can get hold of a streaming television show. Just go sign up for Disney Plus for $5 a month or whatever.
Thing. You catch it all up in a month. Yeah.
So it's probably more effective now, and I feel like the temptation is going to lead them down that road eventually. I just wonder when it will happen.
It's funny because they can make all the same mistakes of classic comics where it's like if they get too like because you can, you know, like if I'm an X-Men fan, you can absolutely get me interested into a Wolverine standalone series, you know. And if I'm into Wolverine, you might be able to get me into like a Alpha Red Wolverine crossover. But like if I'm a Wolverine reader and you like drag Black Widow through a single comic book or Hawkeye, I'm not going to follow that the West Coast Avengers into the Avengers and then on like, no, get the fuck out of here. That's just a one-shot annoying character that I'm going to, you know, never remember. And I think that like they can do that. Also, the other thing that like, you know, has caused some of the like recessions in comic book eras is when they do too much stuff. Like, oh man, this is so like, it's like, you know, let's people love when we have a #1 issue. So let's do 5 fucking variant copies of that #1 issue. In fact, let's do like we got New Mutants, we got Newer Mutants, we got Newest Mutants. People love that. We got 3 fucking issues now with these characters, and eventually
collect them all,
and 8 covers for each one of them. And they're gonna like eventually people like, well, why are we collecting? We're collecting this stuff because we want to get rich. And you make a hojillion copies of all different ones. No one knows which variant's going to be the popular one. All of them, like to this day, X-Men #1 is worth what? $250? Like 40 years after, almost 40 years after it came out, because they made like literally 1 billion issues. So it's not like Superman #1, or rather Action Comics #1. So like, yeah, like Disney can actually do too much and have people. And then you got, you know, like if people decide they're out on, this is shit we talked about, like I feel like in every single one of these shows, but like there is a very real danger of glutting the market is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Especially when you got Amazon with fucking Invincible, especially when you got DC doing all the shit that DC's doing, especially when you got Amazon with The Boys. Like how much superhero shit can you care about? Maybe it's infinite. Maybe it's like a genre like science fiction. I just don't know. I just know in real life comics, there is a finite amount of attention and money people pay on that stuff.
And I'm always surprised every time Disney goes for it when Marvel like introduces Ant-Man or Guardians or any of these other lesser known comic book characters, and people do jump on that train. They have no problem going over to those. Guardians is a huge success. Nobody knew who Guardians were except for hardcore Marvel fans before that movie came out. Right. So I've been both impressed with their ability to deliver on that stuff and also simultaneously biting my nails and worrying like, when are the wheels going to fall off this? I don't know. It's probably when the marketing gets too obvious, maybe. And there are, because now there's another new team that you got to worry about, the Eternals. Fantastic Four is on the way. X-Men are on the way, and X-Men is a whole fucking lot. Yeah. Like, because so far it's essentially been the Avengers plus Spider-Man, right? And I guess Guardians. And then it'll get harder. It'll get harder for them to juggle. Yeah, for sure. I guess we should get back to the episode.
Yeah, maybe. There's a little bit of a time variance in his podcast. It might have needed a bit of pruning, but who knows? Have we hit the red line yet?
We'll see. I'll let the timekeepers deal with that later. So Loki and Sylvie are taken to the timekeepers, the elevator, because they got a whole ride up here, where Sylvie asks why the TVA brought her in as a child. Ravonna claims she doesn't remember what her Nexus event was. Really just, you know, emotionally
she's being a
withers.
Massive asshole. Yeah, she's being a bit implying that like not only do I remember, but it's a real fucking doozy, but I'm not going to tell you because fuck you.
Yeah. They go before the timekeepers, who demand that they be deleted, but then B-15 shows up, unlocks their variance collars, gives them all weapons, and everybody fights. And then Sylvie chops the head off a timekeeper, and they discover, oh, it's a robot. Chop the other two just to make sure they're all robots, is what I say. But
yeah, because what if they're just like hedging their bets? Like, oh yeah, sure, someone might eventually gain access and throw a sword at us. They're gonna throw a 3.
Right.
No fucking way is the wheel's gonna come off that much. Just have some decoys, man.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Or maybe they're the robots, but they're still like, look for the guy behind that's pulling the strings behind the
Check
thing.
Behind
like
that
they're
dais.
all 3 robots, but there's a real you got to do that. You got to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. God damn, have you guys not seen The Wizard of Oz? Oh,
yeah, it struck me that a lot of people who are watching this probably haven't seen The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is such an old movie, and I know it's popular, but I feel like its popularity is fading, and the younger generation, maybe a lot of them haven't seen it. And so this is fucking mind-blowing that this would be a decoy, ruler over this TVA.
Yeah.
Whereas we're like,
especially when
episode
you're talking,
1, Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about like your core intended audience of like probably children, teenagers, and young adults. Like the odds of them not having seen The Wizard of Oz probably pretty high. Because you're right, that thing is, I think its personal star is fallen quite a bit. It's
what
like
is it,
it's
100
probably about
years
as
old at this point. It's
pretty fucking old. It's like 80, 80
Yeah.
plus. It's like it'd be like, kids like being conversant on like, are they even conversant on Peter Jackson's King Kong, let alone the original?
Ooh,
like shit, man. How many kids have even seen The Wiz? Like, yeah, I don't know.
When I'm talking kids, I'm talking people who are like 25 years old, right? I don't even mean kids.
Yeah.
I mean adults who just are of a younger generation, whose parents weren't alive around the time that The Wizard of Oz came out and forced them to sit down and watch it.
I do love some of the designs on these timekeepers. Like who knew that Jamie Heineman would be one of the face models for
that guy, the Wilford Brimley of timekeepers. Looks so
Walrus
dumb.
Man here. Especially since, like, what is that? Is that a beard? It's like, it's all like the same color of his flesh and it's the same consistency and it's actually a robot. So like, what the hell? Yeah. What are the timekeepers? They're constructs.
Yeah. I don't know. I have so many questions. Like when, they chop the head off and it's revealed that they're robots. I'm like, okay, well, does this make sense? Because whoever had, whoever's controlling these timekeeper robots had foreseen that there would be a scene where someone comes in and chops their head off. And so they planted these decoys. And that's, part of the sacred timeline. Like, how much of this timeline stuff, because they've seen eternity, right? They know that this stuff is going to happen. It's just, that's
the thing. I think this is going back to the theory that like that's all bullshit. That's the cover story. What you actually have is a malevolent person that's guiding the timeline to their end.
Yeah,
which looks from the outside indistinguishable from someone who has an end in mind that's good for the good of all. Right. And they're steering it, making sure that we don't get off that path. You just have to trust the people behind the curtain. But I also I love that they have a fail-safe mode where if any one of them has killed the others, like cackle maniacally before they eventually shut down. Like that's a nice little subroutine. Just kind of like one last laugh. This is implying that this isn't even our final form, and then you just shut down. Yeah, kind of an odd note.
You've discovered my ruse. How cute. Then rather than so Loki gets pruned at the end of this. He wonders about who created the TVA, and he's about to tell Sylvia about how he feels about her. And then Ravonna gets up and prunes him. And rather than prune her back, Sylvie says, "You're going to tell me everything."
Which is, again, this is another like it ties Mobius to Ravonna the same way it ties Loki to Sylvia. They're literally in the same situation where they're both talking about how much they mean to each other and blah, blah, blah. And then the other gets purged. I think there's definitely some connection there. Yeah.
There's a post-credit sequence where Loki wakes up to find some really bad cosplayers telling him that he'll die if he doesn't come with him. I was very confused by this scene. I guess this is just like three... It's
Loki variants.
It's 2 Loki variants and a Thor variant? Or is this... Because one of them's holding the hammer.
You're right.
I don't know if that's actually...
But that could be a Loki variant. That could be the Loki variant where like Thor never proved himself worthy and Loki worked his ass off and, was overachieved and became the good one.
Yeah, I want to say it's probably 3 Lokis. If I
think so too, because it would be weird to get a Thor. But honestly, a Loki that's Thor, Thor that's Thor, like, because that's the thing. Like, I think canonically, anyone who is worthy to hold the hammer essentially becomes Thor, or has the mantle, the power, the authority, all that stuff of Thor. So like, if Loki were able to manage to be worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, I think he does become Thor. So we could both be right on that one.
Yeah.
But you're right. And also the old dude is wearing essentially a comic accurate version of like Silver Age Loki. And it's pretty fucking glorious. It's exactly like, that's the way they used to make comic book movies. Like, well, that's like spandex, right? Well, just fucking make some gold spandex and throw some horns on him. You know, this is that's Italian Spider-Man Loki is what that is.
And then one of them has a Loki dial or a Croca Loki. I don't know what to call this thing.
Whoa, there's a 4th Loki?
Oh yeah, in the lap of the Loki who's kneeling. You didn't see the alligator or crocodile or whatever that's wearing a Loki?
I did not. I saw baby Loki, old Loki, and like, you know, Loki Prime or Loki in his prime. I didn't see the 4th Loki sitting on the gator Loki. Oh my god.
Yeah, there's an alligator or something wearing a Loki headdress. It's wild. I don't know what they're gonna do with this. I'm curious though. My mind is reeling. I want to see, like, you know, as you spoke to, sort of the chaos being created by the universe, and the show did too, in order to try and break free, right, of this quote unquote sacred timeline. This could be part of that. This could be that the universe has created a scenario in which the Loki variant that we know goes to Loki Land. I don't know. Is this going to be a new Disney theme, part of their theme park, Loki Land, where you just got everybody dressed up like different Lokis, and Mickey Mouse is wearing the Loki horns?
That's actually a really fun idea, because, like, you know, it gets tough to get people to look like Daisy Ridley to run around in, you know, sleeveless robes and 90-degree heat. But like, it gets significantly easier to have pull off Lokis when Lokis can literally look like anything.
Oh yeah, jet ski Loki, right? You get
yeah. Also probably be like, also this would also be fun to, like, you know, for more representation to, like, you know, like, I don't know that they do this, but like, this blows the lid off. Like, if you want to have a black Thor ride, maybe Disneyland does this, but like, if you want to have a black Thor rolling around Disney World, why the hell wouldn't you? Because he's just a variant, you know. So this is just a different, and who's to say, like, shit, they already have a canonically black Asgardian, whoever, Himdine, the guy that guards the Himdall, the guy that guards the Rainbow Bridge. So like, fuck it, black Lokis, Asian Lokis, native Loki, native Thor. Like, just once and for all, let's stop having a stupid fucking argument.
What do you think about?
Kick the door open to it.
What would you think about Jim Lokis?
I'm 100% in favor of them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I volunteer Disney.
I volunteer. Do we need to explain this to the podcast, or is this going to be trimmed? Okay, gotcha.
No explaining to the podcast. Just know that you're missing out on twitch.tv/baldmove every Wednesday at 1. Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this alternate dimension. This whatever nexus is happening here is going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
not
really
getting
distracted
my
by the way. I'm really distracted by the way your horns like move and flex when you move your eyebrows up and down. Okay, before we get to feedback, I want to talk about a couple of theories that I've seen people talk about. We got a couple in the feedback section. We're going to deliberate, but there's this big one that came out in the last few days that someone noticed a couple days ago, of course, on Reddit. If you take the TVA logo and you flip it upside down, like Dan Brown, Demons and Angels style, it appears to spell Val. And in a way that, like, you can't kind of unsee once you see it, because they like the T is weirdly serif, so it's only on one side. And so a lot of people are trying to draw a connection between the Val character that was introduced in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, played by, again, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, who I think is going to go on. The leading theory is to be some kind of like head of Hydra reformed. So she's staged to be a big big villain in her own right in a Marvel universe, and people are like, oh, what if Val is behind the TVA? I'm going to respectfully say that seems like it's above her pay grade. Like, I don't think the Julie Louis-Dreyfus character is going to be the manipulating time and space on like that kind of like cosmic universal way. I really don't. But there's also, I did a little bit of research, and again, I'm not a big Thor fan, and I'm not a huge, on Norse mythology. But Loki, in Norse legend, has a son named Vali. And he's figures in a key betrayal of the other gods of Loki, where they get him cornered with his 3 sons. They transform Vali into a wolf, and he tears the guts out of his other sons. And then the gods use the intestines of Loki's own sons to form bands around his throat, his midsection, and his legs, and lash him to a stone table. I don't know, for all time until Ragnarok or something. So that's interesting. And then I did a little bit more research, and I found out that canonically in the Marvel universe, that Loki does have a son, a half Asgardian / ice giant / human, that is also called Vali. And he also has an alter ego called Agamon, who establishes this institute called the Pantheon, which is an interventionalist think tank dedicating to improving the human condition by ending war, famine, and disease. That's the cover story. Of course, he's actually villainous. He ends up betraying all the ideals and dragging in the Marvel universe into war and all that kind of stuff. Mm. But that kind of sounds
mispronounced
like
Amazon, by the way.
Well, if you take Loki and Sylvie and you put them together in that font, you turn it upside down, it spells Bezos.
Okay.
But like, I think there's an interesting there is a little interesting parallel there. Like, if you shorten that to Val, and like if you look at the cover story of this Agamon character and what he's trying to do versus what the TVA, like a lot of times when they've translated characters from the comic books to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they take some liberties on which version of the character and they sometimes mix and match qualities from different versions and whatnot. If I squint, I can see that. And that seems like a good reveal that would build on to things that might be important to like Guardians of the Galaxy and like further lore, Thor lore. And it'd be but also a villain that's like, pretty big, but also tied more to these characters. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like the literally next big thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm interested to see, because I haven't seen anybody make that connection when I was researching this on Reddit and the internet. So I'm curious to see, because like I don't know. I just don't buy the Julie Louis-Dreyfus connection. It seems too small. That character seems too small potatoes. But then again, Red Skull ended up being the fucking master of the Soul Stone floating in the Soul Sphere. So who the hell knows? Maybe that guy started off as the head of Hydra, and he ends up, being a pivotal cosmic figure. So maybe they're going to that well again. But shit, they just barely got that character started, and that she's already also founded a TVA, which again is plausible with the rules of the universe, that once something happens, it's always happened. And always. So like, I don't know, but I thought that was my little take on the TVA flip it upside down equals Val theory.
Yeah, so we've never seen, like, if Loki has a son, we've never seen it mentioned, I don't think, in the MCU canon. So this scene after the credits kind of kicks the door open, right? Because we have an unlimited, potentially, number of Lokis and their variations and their offspring, perhaps, that could be reintroduced into the sacred timeline.
Well, yeah, so that's a part 2 of this. Is Agamon character, he recruits into the Pantheon his own children, which he's fathered surreptitiously throughout all different like civilizations and like species and whatnot. So like, what if these Loki variants, like it seems like the Loki variants are like especially notorious. What if one of the sons of Loki is going and actually fathering a whole bunch of children that then become Loki variants, which is narcissistic and incestuous and a whole bunch of other shit. But like, they're already going there in the show, so fuck it.
Yeah.
They're taking self-love to its logical conclusion
for sure.
But I don't know. There's something I wish I knew more. And I only have like from the time I wake up and watch this thing till the time I record at 1 p.m. to do the research. So I didn't.
Right.
People that watched the live knew that I was like literally putting this shit together as I was like, about ready to hit record. So I'm very curious to see what becomes this Val equals TVA stuff when the entire internet gets a chance to chew over it with the reveal at the end as well. So that's all I got. Do you have anything else, or we can get right to feedback?
Let's get to feedback.
Okay, feedback. Marvel@baldmove.com. First up is Kate says, I enjoyed this episode of Loki much more than I did the last, although I think to date the series has been the strongest in episode 2 with Loki and Mobius forced together in their awkward buddy cop dynamic. Agreed. But it was nice. Like I thought that we would have a whole other episode, another episode of Loki and Sylvie kind of doing their own thing. It's kind of nice to get them back together the next episode and yet continue the plot. So that being said, this episode got 2 big gasps of surprise for me. The first is when Mobius was pruned, and again when Loki was. Mobius's turn against the TVA felt a bit sudden. How much can you really do in 6 episodes? But I think Owen Wilson brought enough nuance to the performance to convince me of it and leave me wondering if he had ever experienced germs of doubt in his mind before now. His delivery of the jet ski lines just before his pruning was really emotive, and my hat goes off to him. We didn't talk about that. Did you think that? Because I never questioned it because I guess I was assuming that this was going to happen the whole time. But
yeah,
if you think you've served an institution for all eternity, and it's mysterious and it's looking out for everyone's best interest, and you believe that in the core of your being, does it feel weird that essentially one weird exchange between a enchanted at that TVA operative is enough to have you just like completely throw that shit? And I know it wasn't just that. He also had suspicions that, but I guess that's the thing. Like, if everything was on the up and up, he steals Ravona's computer, verifies that everything's on the up and up, and then swipes it back, and but like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. My husband's probably not cheating on me, or my wife's probably not cheating on me, and I just had something weird. I'm going to steal their phone for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah.
If that phone leads you to see that they've had an affair that's happened at least once, like, that's going to instantly have you reevaluating your relationship, right? I think that's the key thing that sold me, the physical evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way Ravona's being so cagey, I think, is what made me buy it too. Not letting him do his job in a lot of the ways that he needs to. And it's also what made me super suspicious about Ravona being in on this whole thing too.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on a Wizard of Oz style reveal of the Timekeepers? I'm delighted to see there's more than meets the eye, but don't currently have much in the way of theories about who is behind it. I mean, we opened up a couple of theory cans here. I was expecting it. Like, that was not a surprise to me. It was a very obvious moment that I was kind of waiting for, and I'm glad that they didn't, try to hide it longer than they had. Like, 2/3 of the way through the series feels like it's the appropriate time for the third step of a Martin reveal. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's George Martin had the theory about whenever you're doing this kind of deep theory crafting, and he's kind of an expert at it. Of course, it's easy to be really deep theory crafter when you don't bother to finish the thesis, but like that you have something that's buried so deep that like 1 out of a million fans is going to get it. And then you have something that develops that theme that gets the people who are not the one in the, that didn't immediately grab it, that like you bring them on. And then you have the actual reveal of the thing, that the twist that you were previously burying under subtext, so that everyone can catch up and be like, oh, fuck, this is what's happening. And it works because the first 2 groups of people get to feel very smug, and then the third group of people don't get left behind. So he's got this kind of 3-step reveal process. And I think that, 2/3 of the way through the work is about appropriate for when you want to deploy your last one of those and then get down to like fucking finishing your story, George. Anyway, finally, the post-credits scene. I watch every week to the end with bated breath and almost turned it off this week, but was delighted, especially to see Richard E. Grant among what I'm assuming is a bunch of other Loki variants. Is this a Loki variant specific timeline, or is it where all pruned Lokis go? If so, will we see Mobius again? Keen to hear what you guys think on the pod and looking forward to the finale. I I don't know what, I mean, that's something we've all kind of like, we've already kind of talked about like the different things that this could mean. And, you know, you came up with the same conclusions we did.
Yeah. And I'm hoping all of that is true, right? I'm hoping that this is like maybe it's not Loki specific. Maybe these Lokis somehow knew that he was going to be there or something. But that this will lead to us getting the gang back together with Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, because I think by far they're the most fun dynamic to watch in this show. And now that's changed, right? Like you don't want to flip that dynamic only to eliminate that dynamic. So I think whatever they're going to do in the future will include Owen Wilson. And this is some kind of place where all of the pruned variants eventually end up.
And again, canonically, Mobius, there's an infinite number of them. It's in his name, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing is, I could see a fan being butthurt about, well, it's not the real Mobius. This isn't the real Loki.
Right.
Like we found out at 3 seconds into the series that this is not the real Loki. So like if you're going to like, so you gotta put all that stuff aside, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's kind of the beauty of it too. They can do a lot of stuff here that just won't count when it comes to the main timeline movie stuff. Not everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Not everything has to matter.
Right.
And I think that's, you know, part of the appeal of those alternate dimension or other timeline comic books too, right? Where they would just spin something off and start fresh, not need to have all the baggage of the old stuff. And whatever new stuff they come up with won't put baggage on the other stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, I also wonder, because like I hear that they're very soon going to come out, and I think this is a great idea. Just write down the home plate of that idea you're talking about, the What If series. This is a classic comic book series where you've got this race of being called the Watchers, who can't actually influence time. They're all omniscient and very powerful, but they can only see and observe. And there's this one particular, I think his name is Uratu or something, one of the Watchers who was kind of like assigned, watching things adjacent to Earth 616 timeline, and he would explore things like, what if Daredevil wasn't blinded? What if Professor X became Juggernaut? What if Frank Castle's family never was murdered and he became the Punisher? And it was always kind of like interesting, kind of very Twilight Zone, like ripples, like butterfly effects of like, you know, what would happen. You know, you think that Professor X, if he had the powers of the Juggernaut with his formidable mental powers, would just become like this unstoppable force for good. But that's not how power works now, is it? And I think that like I could see them debuting the Watchers at the end of this as a way to kick off that series, because that's another TV series. It would be interesting to like if these guys are like the time cops to show up at the end and be like, hey, look, you know, we can't do anything about that. They'll pull a classic Watcher like in a final episode. We can't do anything about this, but we can tell you that this TVA timekeeping one true thing is bullshit and needs to be undone, and empower like Loki to do it. Maybe they could even recruit. I don't know. I don't know exactly, because again, I was a fan of the What If series, but I never got into like the particular things of the fucking Watchers, you know, the lore mechanics of how that shit all works. I wonder if there's going to be something to that too, because they need something to kick that off, although arguably maybe not. Maybe just need a Watcher to come in and be like, hey, I'm a Watcher, and you know about all that timeline and infinite stuff. That's my job to watch this shit and chronicle it and keep track all I'm the guy that compiles all the reports you see at the TVA or whatever. But it would be cool if they somehow, you know, springboarded that series off of this one or something like it.
Or if there's like a Loki variant who's using the Watchers to run like Rehoboam type simulations for the future outcomes of things and keeping the timeline in check that way. Yeah, right. I don't want to spin out too many theories in my own mind, because that's where expectations start to ramp back up. And then, that's madness.
Let's move on to Sean, who's our kind of resident Loki lore expert. Just wanted to pop in with a theory about the TVA. After the big reveal that the timekeepers are robots, i.e. why they don't let other robots into the TVA, question mark? Let's stop there. That's interesting. I don't know why. Because there's a lot of like actual like sentient robots in the Marvel universe. Maybe they handled them differently than they did. Anyway, I'm not sure if like they just have a nobody blow up the robot spot prejudice. And
Is
the
it
agents
that
are all
robots
variants.
never create Nexus events because they don't have the free will required or something, or the universe doesn't use them as agents of chaos for some reason,
That's an interesting idea.
and so they never
That's
become
super interesting
variants.
idea. That's interesting. I wonder. I don't know. I don't
know where to go with that, or if why that would be supported at all, but who knows?
Anyway, if the timekeepers are robots and the agents are all variants, it begs the question who's behind it all. And it's starting to feel like the TVA is just tricks all the way down. What if the TVA is an invention of some other Loki seeking to prune his variants across time and space before they get him, a la Rick from Rick and Morty? He tricks variants into hunting, pruning any Lokis that don't lead to him, is ensuring his ultimate survival. It would fit well to timekeepers from the comics. Man, Rick and Morty continues to pair very well with this series because, like, obviously you're influenced by what happened with all the decoys in the previous episode of Rick and Morty. No spoilers, but there's decoys. The timekeepers in the comics are tied up with the time twisters, first appearing in Thor number 243, 1976. Those goddamn editor's notes. You know how hard it is to find Thor number 243 in 1976? I know. There's a whole Marvel subscription service where you can...
Yeah.
Not to sound like an ad for them, but it's a pretty good deal. You can get like literally every fucking digital comic that they've ever made. Every comic in digital form they've ever made. At the heat death of the universe, one last survivor, He Who Remains is what he's called, created 3 organisms that are intended to carry the collective knowledge of this universe over into the next universe to kind of effectively bootstrap things. Instead, they turned out defective and began traveling backwards in time towards the beginning of this universe. As they traveled back, they studied and destroyed civilizations, collecting knowledge they believed would help them rebuild the universe when they arrived at the beginning. So they got their whole purpose like backwards, right? Thor gets his ass handed to him, so he travels into the far future, convincing He Who Remains to never create them in the first place. But what this actually does is split the timeline into one where the time twisters were originally created and one in where Thor interferes and He Who Remains corrects his error, ultimately creating the timekeepers. The twisters try to eliminate the timelines that don't result in their birth, while the keepers resist this, creating the TVA. The keeper twister battle draws in the Kang and Mortius. This is going back, like obviously, you have to go back to listen to episode 2's feedback to get the full skinny. But it turns out, Reed Richards has a kid that 1,000 years in the future becomes a time traveling warlord. Then he turns into a good guy, maybe not. And he eventually drives Kang Prime to recognize that all the variants of himself he has created as inferior need to be purged. Many of these Kangs had banded together to form the, I shit you not, Council of Cross-Time Kangs. But Kang Prime hunts them down, eradicating them to the last human lizard or robot variant. I think you can kind of see where this is going with the end credit sequence here. I see Loki's story as a combination of these 2 plot points. I think there's another significant Loki variant we'll meet that is trying to eliminate Loki's while ensuring his eventual rise. There's precedence for this in the comics as well. At one point, Asgard was relocated to post-Ragnarok to Bronxton, Oklahoma. During this time, Loki would accidentally doom Asgard once again by manipulating a dark Superman homage named the Sentry into battle with, I know the Sentry, into battle with Asgard, hoping to weaken the throne. Loki underestimated the Sentry and in the end sacrificed himself to stop him. Loki, being Loki, had sealed a bargain previously that would allow him to escape hell and be reborn as a child. This child Loki, as he became known, had no memory of the previous adult Loki's life, but was taunted by nightmares of the pain he had caused. Thor treated him as an innocent, but all the other Asgardians hated and bullied him. Thor, you're not doing a very good job. You're not protecting your little reborn bro from the bro bullying. Kid Loki was accompanied by a raven named Ekel, which is Loki spelled backwards, which contained the psychic echo of the... Oh, Jesus Christ. This is the fucking problem with Marvel. This is why if anyone asked me to a brief recounting of the X-Men's history, you can't fucking do it.
Nope.
You can't fucking do it. You can give it a synopsis of the last 3 years maybe, but fuck. Here, well, let me explain the Siege Perilous and how this actually... No. Anyway, Ekel's actual purpose was to manipulate Kid Loki into creating a clean slate with Thor and Asgard, only to steal the youthful body and reputation of his reborn self. It's like at the end of Sharp Objects, if Adora had used a satanic ritual to steal Camille's body and life. I think we might see this play out with an Uber Loki trying to be the only Loki timeline. He also added in a PS, at this time in Oklahoma, Loki would create from whole cloth as a prank a young teenage girl that he gifted magical powers to as well. She styled herself as the Enchantress based off an old Asgardian villain and eventually wound up with and against the Young Avengers. Her name was Sylvie Lushton. Again, on another Young Avenger note, the old Loki and kids Loki's body would also go on to fight and join the Young Avengers. Because old Loki was literally haunted by Kid Loki, pushing him towards a semi-redemptive arc. Okay. I think you're onto something that they're taking elements from all three of these different plots. And because they're honestly, the more you got to talk about it, the more similar they all sound, right? And the more you can kind of see them being streamlined into like a single plot that will probably kick off Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. It's probably going to kick off elements of Thor, Love and Thunder, because I think one of the big things in Thor, Love and Thunder is they got Natalie Portman back, who is going to, since Thor is off gallivanting, be pressed into service as a female Thor. She's going to inherit the mantle of Thor. And they now have a female Loki, so they could just let those ladies have fun in their own little Thor reboot and let, Chris Hemsworth have fun with the Guardians and Tom still have fun on his Loki series. I don't know. The new Marvel phase is starting to shape up. I'm still got some question marks about these Eternals or Immortals or whatever the hell they're called. But like, I'm starting to, this seems kind of cool. Like some fresh breaths of air.
Right. The Black Widow movie. Fresh breath of air.
Well, that's
letting the stale air out so you can breathe in the new fresh air.
That's them unfucking their timeline from 7 years ago when they obviously should have fucking greenlit a Black Widow movie. But
I'm with you. I'm pretty open to what they're doing next. And I think, like, look, Loki both fucking and fighting other Lokis is pretty good.
Yep.
I'd like to see both those things happen. And maybe less so on the fucking side, more on the fighting side. So if they introduce like another Loki variant as a bad guy, in whatever streamlining of those comic lines that they're gonna do, I'd be down for that. Sounds fun.
I do like. I thought this where he made the sharp objects analogy of a wicked person stealing an innocent's reputation. I think I don't know if they can do that in 2 more episodes though.
No, I don't think so. And there's gonna be more Loki though, right? This is not. It might just have to wait a year.
Yeah, and like also this I don't know what's Tom's contract, because I could see like if at the end of this series that like Loki redeems himself and he's positive, but again he's kind of fake Loki, so like people could be like, who cares anyway? Like the evil Loki that's pulling the strings behind this, if my Val theory craps out, like like enchanting and putting his consciousness into the Loki that everyone thinks is a hero, so that several movies and television shows he can be a hero, but we know in the back of our mind he's actually villainous. It'd be like if the witch took over Wanda at the end, instead of being imprisoned in a Nexus. I think I could see that. I don't know about this young kid Loki and all that stuff. But we'll see. We got 2 more episodes. We'll see what they end up doing with this. I am with you a little bit though, that like I think that if they don't do something really mind-blowing that feels very powerful and earned and like from this deep lore shit, I might just swear off caring this deeply about Marvel stuff going forward. Like,
certainly like
I'll definitely
shows.
Yeah, I'll start watching the things I think, like, again, What If seems like a slam dunk and stuff like that. But like getting in and doing these deep dives into it, it's going to start feeling like it's, I think people get tired of it, and I certainly will get tired of spending this much time thinking about it, only to have it constantly be like, it doesn't matter. So that's it. If you'd like to send us some feedback, it's easy to do so. Marvel@baldmove.com if you'd like to do it. And then we might read your email on next week's podcast. That's it for Loki this week. We got 2 more episodes to go. Let's see what they do with the penultimate. Now, if Mr. Waldron is sticking by his leftovers analogy, the penultimate episode might be a fucking doozy.
And Tom Hiddleston said 4 and 5 are his favorites. So
yep. So like, we could have a real fucking hammer of an episode next one. So we'll see. We'll find out at 3 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time next week. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. Until the next time, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Jim.
See ya.